I am woman, hear me roar.
Women in horror is complicated. Let's get into it. Hello, Champagne Nightmares. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, I don't know how you found me, but I hope you'll stick around. Hit that subscribe button down below. Join the fam. My name is Janessa J. Champagne, and I am North Dakota's trash queen of glam, geek, and gore. And for today's video, we're going to be talking about Women's History Month. What is the horror that I'm going to be watching and rewatching to celebrate Women's History Month? I talked about this in my last month's video with Black History Month, where DEI, I know, is kind of in chaos. It's in a shambles. Companies are walking back and they need to be held accountable. But let's not forget that we can do DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion for ourselves. And so to celebrate Women's History Month, I'm going to be watching and rewatching some really fantastic horror. And if you'd like to know what that is, then stick around because we're getting into it right now. That's right, we are going to be watching some fabulous horror films. Now, women in horror is a complicated thing, right? There's been a lot of exploitation. There's a lot of jokes about boobs and dumb women who take their tops off and have sex and then get murdered. And does it support that? Like, is this some sort of conservative morality? I think it's much more complicated, much more complex than that. But I also really enjoy, there is a sort of subgenre of horror that I think of as good for her. And this is women who are taking back their power, taking back revenge, really kind of getting back at these men who have messed with their lives. Now, there's a long history of the final girl often taking out the killer at the end of the movie. It doesn't stick because there's always a sequel, but we've had a lot of great final girls. But then there's also a lot of like really strong women characters doing all different kinds of things in horror. So I'm excited to talk about that. I again am not doing really like a top 10, these are my favorites. But I'm doing sort of a 10 countdown of things that I want to watch and rewatch and things that I really think you might enjoy during Women's History Month. So let's get started with number 10. Number 10 is a classic.
They were supposed to have been watching him.
Friday the 13th. I love Mrs. Voorhees, and I hate that so many people forget that Jason Voorhees was not the killer in the original Friday the 13th. There were quite a few early 80s, late 70s, as the slasher film was starting to sort of bubble up, there were a lot that featured female killers. And that kind of got lost for a while, and then it was brought back in things like Urban Legend. But I really loved that Friday the 13th, the OG, was Mrs. Voorhees. She is the one who was killing all those campers, and I loved the reveal. I loved the kind of story behind it. And Jason is fantastic. Friday the 13th is probably my favorite of the big three slasher franchises. And I love the Jason character, and I love what they did with him over the years for the most part. But I really love Mrs. Voorhees. I think she's a fun, interesting character. Betsy Palmer is a hoot. I need to look into more of her film history because she was kind of a big deal. And I loved that, like, she was going to turn it down. And she's told this in, like, interviews and stuff where she said she needed a car, and she was looking at a car, and it was like $3,000. They asked her if she wanted to do Friday the 13th, and she's like, "Are you going to pay me $3,000?" And they were like, "Okay." And she's like, "Okay." And she did it so she could buy this car. I think it's fantastic. So, Betsy Palmer, rest in peace. We love Mrs. Voorhees. We stan. We are a Mrs. Voorhees household. In the number 9 spot, I'm not going to talk about this very long. I have talked about this in so many videos. Black Christmas 2019. You knew it was coming. I love Black Christmas. I did a whole video where I talked about all 3 versions of Black Christmas, which you can watch right here, linked for your convenience. And in that video, I talked about how I think that Black Christmas 2019 is the best of the 3. Controversial yet brave take. I know it's a hot take. I know that it's something really controversial. People don't always agree with it. There's a lot of people who love the original. There are some people who, for whatever reason, love the 2006 remake, which is bananas to me because that movie is terrible on so many levels. But I love Black Christmas 2019. I think it's a great social commentary. And I had said in that original video that I think that the social commentary, that piece of it, is on the level with Get Out. And I said that I didn't think it handled the horror part of it as much. As I've rewatched it more and more, I think I was maybe not giving it enough credit. I think the horror slasher element of it is also very good. So I think that it was better than I even talked about in that video. So Black Christmas 2019, I'll stop talking about it because I know you people are sick of it. Let me know in the comments below. Just say, shut up, girl. It's engagement. I'll take it. And just don't use any bad words or you'll get filtered. And you'll deserve it, you filthy, filthy person. In the number 8 spot, this one is a little bit wild. I need to rewatch this. Let me know down below if you would like to see a dedicated video on this because I've been thinking about doing a dedicated video on men. Not men in general. Oh, God. If there was ever any question about sexuality being a choice, do you think that if I had a choice, I would still be attracted to men? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Have you been on Grindr? It's where hope goes to die. I love the movie Men. It is so weird. It is so quirky. There's a thing in it where it's not too much of a spoiler to let you know that all of the male characters are played by the same actor. And it's kind of superimposed in very strange ways. And so it took me a little while to figure it out. I didn't notice it the first couple times. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, that looks like that other guy. And then once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And it's so fascinating. It is a little bit hard to put together. And I'll maybe save this if I do the dedicated video to kind of really talk through the ending. That's why I want to rewatch it, because it's a little bit convoluted. And it really relies on you recognizing a specific quote from kind of history and mythology that I think... I know that even in my education, I am an old, and even in my education, a lot of that Greek history, Greek literature, Greek mythology had started to like fall out of the curriculum. We did some of the basics, but I think that used to be more of a thing. And so now I think kids today probably wouldn't recognize it and wouldn't be able to put this together. But I think it's a really fascinating story. And I think the way that they present it is really interesting. So Men, quirky, weird, a little bit convoluted, but worth a rewatch. I'm going to check it out and I'll probably do a dedicated video. You can let me know down below if you're excited to see that. Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? In the number 7 spot, we have The Witch. Or is it The Vitch? It's The Witch. I love Anya Taylor-Joy, and I didn't even realize that that was her. She didn't really kind of come into my consciousness until later. She's done some fantastic horror work. The Menu is mwah, chef's kiss. I absolutely love it, but she is great in The Witch. And I love that she's playing this character. She's kind of this young child in this family that's been ostracized and sent out into the woods. I love that she just kind of is being mistreated and she's being blamed for everything bad that happens. And so then when she gets the chance to just go like be with the witches and worship the devil, she's like, fuck these people. And she goes. I love it. I love The Witch. I absolutely want to see that because it's another one of those that I really think of as like good for her horror, where she kind of was getting blamed for all of these random things that just happened. Now that is absolutely what happened during Puritan times, and that's what the witch hunts were all about, was just innocent women getting blamed for existing, for not bowing down to the patriarchy. I mean, it really was just a terrible time. And so that I love that at the end she gets to win and she gets to just go and live deliciously. So I am absolutely excited to watch The Witch. Apparently the goat that was in that movie was so hard to work with that the animal trainer, like, he was retired to a farm immediately after that movie was over. It's such a funny story to read because he was just such a pain in the ass, and they didn't have time to, like, I don't know, recast the goat or whatever, I guess. I don't know why it's that hard. Maybe there's not enough trained goats, so they couldn't find one that looked similar enough, but he was such a pain that right afterwards they were like, you are done. Your agent has dropped you. I'm sorry. You and Kato Kalin can go be on some reality series somewhere. We don't want anything to do with you. In the number 6 spot, Midsommar. I love Ari Aster. Hereditary was fantastic. That's another good one, but I really want Midsommar because Midsommar, again, it's one of those good for her horror movies, and I love it. There's a lot in there about trauma and grief, and the way that her boyfriend treats her is abominable, and the way that it ends is perfection. I love that she gets to have that sort of revenge. It's so fantastic. And I love that this is one of those horror films. It's kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where most of it, and especially a lot of the really horrific parts, happen in the bright light of day. And that's hard to do because a lot of horror films, they really rely on darkness and shadow, that there's things lurking out there that you can't see. And I love when a film can have everything happen in the bright midday sunshine and it's still terrifying. It's still creepy. And Midsommar absolutely achieves that. I love it. It's a favorite. I love Florence Pugh. I think she's fantastic. Oh, so good. In the number 5 spot, we have 2 movies that I haven't seen yet. I'm calling this the Monique double feature. I love Monique. I loved watching, I mean, I didn't love watching it because it was sort of traumatic and, I mean, it was terrible for her. I really respected her journey where she kind of called out Netflix for not paying her the same way that they paid a lot of the white comedians. And I love that she stood up to Lee Daniels, and a lot of these films that she's in now are produced by Lee Daniels, so they clearly have mended that, and I love that she's kind of on a comeback. And so I want to see a couple of new Monique horror vehicles, The Deliverance and The Reading. Now, I could have just picked The Deliverance because that one kind of blew up on social media. That one clip with Glenn Close, we all know what we're talking about, right? I can smell your nappy. That was a moment. It got memed into oblivion. That show, people have had some criticisms of it. I do want to see it, but I've also heard a lot of really good things about The Reading. So I was like, you know what? I love to have more than 10 movies on a top 10 countdown. So I figured let's do a Monique double feature. Let's do The Deliverance and The Reading. Let's watch both of them because The Reading sounds really interesting as well. And it sounds like Monique really gets to kind of show off some of her acting chops in this horror role that may have some things to do with grief and loneliness and things like that. And anxiety around security after you've experienced a trauma. So I'm really excited to see both of these films. So I can't really tell you if I love them or hate them because I haven't seen them, but that's part of the joy of horror, is discovering new horror movies and watching new things. So that's my recommendation on this list of things that I haven't seen. In the number 4 spot, we have another double feature. We know I love to cheat the numbers system, but these are 2 films that I think are very similar in spirit. I think that the later one is definitely a spiritual successor. And so I really love Jennifer's Body and Lisa Frankenstein. I think they're both great, interesting movies about kind of high school young women who are put into these extraordinary kind of horrific circumstances. Jennifer's Body, I am so mad that that film didn't do as well as it should have because of men, really. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about Women's History Month. That's why we're celebrating these things. Karen Kusama, who is the director, who is brilliant, created this fantastic exploration of young women and female sexuality and female friendship. And then they sent it off to the marketing department, and some mediocre white dude was like, Megan Fox, titties. And so all of the promotion was just like, oh, look at Megan Fox. Isn't she sexy? Look at her be beautiful. Look at her be sexy. And it's like, that is not what this movie is about. And that's what they marketed. And then it was not that. That's not what the movie was. And so then people didn't know what to do with it. And it got weird reviews because how they promoted it had nothing to do with what it actually was. I'm really, really so frustrated that it didn't do better than it was. And I love that it's getting kind of this cult following now. And I think that a real spiritual successor to that is a movie like Lisa Frankenstein. I love Diablo Cody. One of my favorite movies in the world is Young Adult, which was written by Diablo Cody. And it's so uncomfortable. There's a moment in that film where I feel like I'm watching an actual, like, mental health crisis nervous breakdown in real time. Charlize Theron deserved an Oscar for that movie, and I will die on that hill. I love Diablo Cody. I love her writing. I love what she creates, and Lisa Frankenstein is brilliant. And she actually wrote Jennifer's Body, so she stayed away from horror for a long time after that movie. I mean, again, how could you have something directed by Karen Kusama, written by Diablo Cody, and then look at that and just go, titties? Like, it's just not, it makes no sense. It makes me so mad. So I love that Diablo Cody is back to doing some horror. She did Lisa Frankenstein, and it is fantastic. It is so good. And it's got some fun, little, interesting representation. I won't give too much away, but you find out some stuff at the end that really kind of speaks to my queer little heart. I love it. So definitely check out both of those movies. In the number 3 spot, if you thought I was cheating the numbers before, who doesn't love a three-way? The 3rd spot goes to the Ty West trilogy, X, Pearl, and Maxine. I couldn't pick one. I was trying to decide which one I was going to put on the list. And to me, they're so much better if you watch them together. They're so much better because I rewatched both X and Pearl before I saw Maxine in the theater. Like the night before. I watched both of them. Maybe the 2 nights before, but I watched one. You can really see his visual style and how he echoes it through all 3 of the films. I think Maxine is the weakest. I think that probably filming X and Pearl together really helped kind of create a cohesive unit. And I think some of the echoing really carries over into Maxine. Some of it is not as successful. But I really love all 3 of these films. Mia Goth, fantastic. I love her. My friend Hex loves her. If you haven't seen our collab yet, where we talk about some of our favorite horror films of the last 5 years, check it out right here. I love these. I think that they are great. Mia Goth is a new Scream Queen. Thank God. We need more of these fabulous Scream Queens. We need more of this new talent that's willing to get into these horror movies, get a little bit dirty, get a little bit bloody, and this trilogy is fantastic. But I really think they are the best, and I think you'll enjoy Maxine the best if you watch it with the other 2. I think that if you're not as current on those other 2, if you've kind of forgotten about them, if it's been a little while, I think Maxine kind of falls apart a little bit. I think you enjoy it more if you see it with the other ones. So for number 3, we're doing a 3-way. We've got X, Pearl, and Maxine. But probably in this order, because the camera is reversed. In the number 2 spot, we are back to another Karen Kusama vehicle. I love The Invitation. I love it. It is so good. It is such a great paranoia horror. Let me know down below. I've thought about doing a list. I don't know if I have 10, but I could maybe do my top 5 like best paranoia horror, because it's unsettling for people with certain kinds of anxiety. It's probably not great, because it really is the type of horror where the main character knows that something is wrong. They look around and they're like, that's not right. That's weird. That's not okay. Everyone around them is just like, what are you talking about? Everything's fine. You're just suffering from delusions, or you're suffering from grief, or you're suffering from trauma. And nobody believes them, and things get weirder and weirder and build up until finally it's revealed that they were right all along. And I love that. I love a paranoia horror. It is a little bit anxiety inducing. It is a little bit stressful to watch because you're kind of on the side of the main character most of the time. Because you're like, no, this is weird. This shit is strange. Why will nobody listen to this person? And The Invitation is absolutely fantastic. It is tight. It's suspenseful. The sort of denouement, the climax is so well executed. You get some really fantastic performances. It's so creepy and weird, and I absolutely love it. Karen Kusama has done some really fantastic films. Watch Jennifer's Body, watch The Invitation, watch anything she puts out there because it is amazing. And of course, if we're talking about good for her horror, if we're talking about women in horror, if we're talking about female protagonists that are really interesting and complex and dynamic, I can see your dirty pillows. They're all gonna laugh at you! Carrie. I love Carrie, and I'm gonna cheat again. I think I'm gonna do a dedicated video. Again, let me know in the comments if you want to see it. I'm probably gonna do it either way. I think I'm gonna do a video on Carrie, the original and the remake, because I like them both. I don't understand this weird world where people think that you can only love one version of something. You can have your favorite, you can have a preference, but people just get so weird about remakes. Now, sometimes if they're really terribly done, or if they really just go in a different direction, like Black Christmas 2006, woof, then absolutely you can hate them. You don't have to like them. But sometimes people hate things just because they're not the original. And that's how I think a lot of people dismiss the remake of Carrie. I think that Piper Laurie is Carrie's mom. She just is. I've seen the musical a few times. I've seen, the remake, and Piper Laurie will just always be Carrie's mom to me. But I love seeing these other interpretations. I felt like Julianne Moore brought some really interesting things to the role. I think she gave a really interesting interpretation of who that character is, of this woman who loves her daughter. And that's, I think, what is key to Carrie's mom in that film, is that you have to understand that as abusive and as hateful as she is, she loves her daughter, but she just has such a twisted understanding of the world and the way that her faith has corrupted her. Her way of showing love to her daughter is abusive and terrible, and she absolutely deserves to be punished for it. But you can't dismiss her as somebody who doesn't love her daughter. Like, that's key. And I think we live in a world where those kinds of discussions, I think sometimes people want to shut them down, and they want to act like, no, there's no way that two things can coexist. And I think Carrie's mom is a perfect example that they absolutely can. You can love someone and be so toxic to them and so harmful that you should be removed from their presence, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's not some sort of love there. It's just dysfunctional love. So I love Carrie. I loved Sissy Spacek, but I loved also that Chloe Grace Moretz, I think that her portrayal is a little bit closer to the book Carrie, because that's one of the things that I think is a little bit weak with the original Carrie, is that if you've read the book, Carrie knows what's going on. She doesn't really understand it, but she knows that she has this power and that it's growing, and she becomes aware that she could use this as a weapon to hurt people. And Sissy Spacek, there's not as much of that in that original Carrie. She just kind of is worried about this thing that's happening to her. She doesn't understand it. She goes to the prom. She gets the pig's blood dumped on her, and she snaps. And she is kind of the perfect victim in that film because she just snaps. She gets her revenge. There's nothing purposeful. With the remake, they still kept it where it just sort of happens at the prom. She gets the pig blood and she starts taking her vengeance. But the Chloe Grace Moretz version of Carrie is much more aware of like, hey, this is a tool that I could use. This is a power that I have. I could hurt these people who are hurting me. And that's how the book was. Because if you've read the book Carrie, one thing that's very different is that in the book, she gets the pig's blood dumped on her. She leaves the prom. is thinking about it and becomes so enraged, she comes back. It is a purposeful choice. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to freak out because this traumatic thing just happened and I kill a bunch of people. She is walking home and she's so humiliated and angry and she becomes enraged and she is like, I am going to get my vengeance. I am going to hurt these people the way that they hurt me. And she goes back, and the whole thing in the book is she's actually standing outside the gym doors and there's these little windows and she's looking in at them and she can see them suffering, but she's like a ghoul. She's like staring in the window. It's so good. But it is a choice. It's not like something just happened to her and she wasn't in control. She makes the choice to do that. Whether you agree with that, whether you think it's justified or not, it is a conscious choice rather than something that just happens to her. So I love both versions, but I do appreciate that Chloe Grace Moretz plays it a little closer to that. Sissy Spacek, still a classic, still fantastic, but it is a little bit more of just a reaction rather than a choice. All right, that is the video. That is the list of 10 plus some horror movies that I am watching and rewatching for Women's History Month. Let me know about my list down in the comments below. What did you think? Are these movies that you want to watch to celebrate this month? Are there other ones that you think I should watch instead or in addition to? It's a long month. We don't have to just watch these. We can watch other ones. So let me know down in the comments below if there's other suggestions that you have for good for her horror movies, because I'd love to hear them. It's my favorite new subgenre. While you're down there leaving me that comment, don't forget to give me the thumbs up to tell me that you appreciated the video, or if you are so upset that I even gave Chloe Grace Moretz the time of day, if you are a Carrie traditionalist, go ahead and give me that thumbs down. I don't mind. It's all engagement. The algorithm isn't a picky bitch, and neither am I. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads. I try really hard to have at least one video a week, and I try to spread it around among glam, geek, and gore so that there's a little bit of something for everyone. And if you're lucky, if you're very lucky, you might even get a bonus video. Ooh, phenomenonific. Sorry, I was trying to make a Chapel Roan reference. Am I cool, Gen Z? Am I cool now? And if you'd like to chat, banter, or commiserate between uploads, all of my social media will be linked down in the description box below, including a link to my website, The World of Champagne at janessajay.com. Thank you so much for watching. I love and appreciate all of you. I love doing these lists. If there's any other lists you want me to do, anything that you want to see in the horror genre, anything you want dedicated videos on, we can see if we can make that happen. Let me know your recommendations and suggestions, or just good movies to watch down in the comments below. I have such fun making these videos, and I hope you enjoy watching them. And until I see you again, bye.
You're such a sex pussy.
Hello, Champagne Nightmares. Welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here, welcome. I don't know how you found me, but I hope you... which you can conveniently watch right here, linked for you, for your convenience. I said convenience twice.
You can't see them in the picture, but look at your boobs. Like this.
Are they different heights?
Yeah,
Oh.
they're different, I guess. Yep. You are such a real woman right now.
In the number 4 spot, we have a number
A number?
closer to the book Carrie. Because that... Carrie?
Carrie.
While you're down there living... And while they're down there, who? Who are they? Are they in this room now? Pink Pony Club.
Shut up, girl.
Shut up, girl.